I call the September 14th, 2020 City Council Committee of the Whole meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Arevalo. Arevalo. Absent. Brereton.
Here.
Flurry.
Present.
Frank.
Present.
Freeman.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Ratcliffe.
Here.
Snow.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. This evening, we have quite a few illustrious folks here to make public comment. Thank you for coming tonight. We'll start out with Jeff Carlisle, who comes every Monday night. You want to go ahead with what you wanted to talk about, Mr. Carlisle?
I heard what you were talking about earlier, Tom. Good idea to move it. Thank you. I wanted to let you all know about the bike path we were talking about at the county board meeting, just last finance meeting. I have data. If you didn't get the cost estimates from this county, I have them for you if you'd like to have them. We're looking at getting this grant set up proposal in the first week of November. We're going to have public meetings on this September 25th from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and October 7th from 11 to 1:30 in the afternoon. This will all be at Logan Avenue for those meetings. We'd like to have everybody attend if they can. What we're looking for, the county's contribution in this thing is the $500,000. What we're looking for is everybody to chip in. I think this will be a big benefit for not just the cities around us in the county, but I think it's going to be advantageous for infrastructure in our organization. And I'd appreciate, if you want this thing, appreciate any comments, or you can give to Justin Crone, or you can please show up on these 2 meetings for public comment. We'd appreciate your time. We're also looking at impact fees. We're coming down to the point where we know impact fees have actually stopped growth. And we see that constantly. And we hear from some of our local realtors, and Justin Crone has actually called some of them. Some of our local staff members have called the realtors, and they say, yeah, it is something to look at. So 2 things we can look at, which we are looking at. One, rescinding it or modifying it to actual cost to date. We're pulling those numbers for that, and we'll be able to give those out during our next finance meeting coming up in next month. And I want to let you know that's what we're trying to do, and I'm pulling numbers with our building department and our clerk. So she's going to hopefully get those numbers. We can't get the numbers out of the computer from 2000 to 2009 because it wasn't in the system at that time. That's all hand done, so we have to do that manually. But we get those numbers. I think we have some idea what we can do math-wise and maybe remediate these costs down to something that's actual. Or we rescind them. But those are the kind of facts and figures that we're trying to do, get together so we can make some educated decisions. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table. That's all I had. Brent, if you wanted to pass it down for the numbers. Thank you.
25th, what time was the meeting?
That was the evening one, 5 to 7:30.
Could you send us a formal email from the county to the city with that information so we can post it?
Absolutely. We have to do that.
Appreciate it. Okay, and I just took these as they landed on my desk, so first up, Mr. Sweeney, would you please step to the podium and make your comments, and welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Dennis Sweeney. I am the Executive Vice President of the Home Builders Association of the Greater Rockford area, which includes Boone County. I'm here tonight to support the change in policy that would suspend the collection of school impact fees. In 2006, the United States entered a Great Recession. Housing starts in Belvidere and across northern Illinois hit rock bottom. And while there has been a slow recovery in home building in parts of the United States, the housing start activity in Belvidere and in northern Illinois in the years leading up to the 2006 recession has not returned. Illinois remains one of the slowest states for a housing recovery. School impact fees were passed in the 90s during a period of booming new construction that, if maintained, would require that additional schools be built. We have not seen such building activity for the past 14 years. Unfortunately, given the rapidly changing demographics of our nation, plus the continuing loss of population across Illinois, I do not expect that there will be rapid growth anytime soon, if ever again, like we experienced in the 90s. Therefore, given this lack of local growth for the past 14 years, it is appropriate that you suspend the collection of school impact fees. I think it will be a positive move for bringing growth back to Belvidere. Thank you.
Well, just a point of clarification. We are looking at suspending city impact fees, fire and police, building permit fees, and our share of the real estate tax.
I support all of that. I was under the
We have
impression.
approached, and I have approached Dan Weisman for the last 2 and 3 years, and they've taken it to their board continuously, and there was no movement. But we're kind of approaching it a different way now with one of their committees and starting there. So we hopefully will get everybody on board with doing that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, John Kanabi.
John Kanabi here representing Newark Holdings LLC. Just to piggyback off of what Dennis has said, Mike and I sat down a few months ago before the pandemic, talked about the same thing. We're encouraged to hear about, what might happen for Tom Howlett. That's what we're seeking. Jeff owns a lot of properties here in the city of Belvidere, and we'd like to piggyback off of that and see some growth and take part in that. In Poplar Grove, they did work out something with the school district or just said that we're not going to collect it. So their fees are roughly $3,000. Hopefully we can get to something like that, because that's what we need to see to invest our monies into developing single-family lots in the city of Belvidere.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Deb Carlson.
Hello. My background is I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Belvidere, excuse me, since 1989, and also own buildings downtown. Since 2008, and I'm hearing some different dates, I've noticed that there's been little or no new construction. What Howlett Homes is offering is a quality-built ranch-style duplex as a rental. Where do you go find such a place in Belvidere? They're taking an area where one might feel has not the greatest views. We'll turn it around, which may hopefully encourage the start of remaining vacant lots in Riverbend West. It can provide nice rentals by keeping residents in our community. They will spend money at the local Casey's or Aldi's right around the corner. They may they may participate in downtown events and may end up buying their future home in our area. I recall when NDK came into our community, we didn't have rentals for executives. We lost them to Rockford Housing. They bought 2 condos over there because we didn't have anything to keep them here. Once they go to Rockford or wherever they end up finding their housing, they don't come back at night or on the weekends to participate in our activities or spend their money. We have senior citizens wanting to size down, move into a ranch-style home with a first-floor laundry, not to have to mow or maintain their home. single parents wanting to keep their children in the same school and close to their existing neighborhoods when divorce or death or financial things happen to them. Right now, it's a hardship when somebody says, excuse me, they want to set up another residency in another area to keep their kids in the same school district. There are young professionals, corporate opportunities. We still have those opportunities. We have a void in our market, especially for a nice ranch-style rental. Not only would this start to fill the void, the trickle effect of new construction brings new residents, new housing opportunities for those of us that live here. Our local hardware store, paint store, appliance, flooring, we all benefit. Let's encourage builders to come, present their worthy projects. The timing is right in so many ways. Excuse me. I've lost my voice. Some people will say that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Connor Brown? Hi, Connor, how are you?
Good evening, Mayor. I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have a few handouts. I'm here on behalf of Neely Harrison, the Belvedere Board of Realtors. She had a conflict tonight, so I asked that I share with you as some prepared remarks and just a little fact sheet. I'm not going to read my remarks, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for bringing up this important issue. I've had the fortunate opportunity to have several conversations with Mayor Chamberlain over the past few years, as well as your superintendent. From our standpoint, we don't advocate for individual developers. We try to look at it from a holistic policy, and we certainly applaud any efforts that are going to bring more affordability and access to your community. I want to talk to you a little bit about numbers, where we're sitting right now. Every day our inventory changes throughout the region. Debbie can tell you a little bit about the challenges that she's experiencing, day in and day out, working this real estate market. We dipped below 500 units several times this summer, and that has really put a constraint on the buyer's options. And quite a few of them are starting to look towards new construction. With our price point growing, I mentioned in there the median's at $142,000. Average through the 3-county region is $151,000. For Boone County, it's $208,000. So you're doing very, very well. With that said, there's still challenges to affordability. And as the National Association of Home Builders points out, every time a house price goes up by $1,000, 424 families in our region are priced out of that home. Now, that does shift with interest rates and things like that, so when they obtain a mortgage. So other things we know about and just the overall philosophy of impact fees and kind of what we're looking at in terms of overall growth. When we're not having our student base grow or more taxpayers added to the rolls, that does impact every unit of government financially. Right now we're going through a U.S. Census. I read somewhere in the state of Illinois the impact for every additional resident is about $1,600. Okay, local impact. Mayor, am I kind of right on that?
You're
right?
close.
Yeah, okay. It's higher? Is that what you're going to say?
And it depends on the marketplace.
Yeah.
But you're looking at millions and millions and millions of dollars
Yeah.
that can be lost if we don't get correct census, and Belvedere's leading the pack right now in terms of compliance.
Which is excellent. And so if you think about it, like in terms of a family of 5, that's, roughly $8,000, give or take. So there is very, very positive effect. We also know that new construction helps your overall sale price increase, because naturally a new house is going to cost more to construct because your labor at that time and construction materials at that time cost more. We also know that cycles through the economy several times, and I'm sure Dennis could point to you. I think it's something like 7 times, right, Dennis? That multiplier. Yeah, the multiplier, that you have people that are not only buying, from your local flooring companies, local lumber, things like that are cycling through the economy. So we certainly want to be a part of this conversation. We've engaged the school district in the past. We certainly want to engage the city here. We know it's up to you in your decision. But from our standpoint, we certainly would love to be able to market this to our buyers as an option And I think you have several gentlemen here tonight that certainly want to get some shovels turning. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Connor. Mr. Howlett.
Good evening. I'm Tom Howlett from Howlett Homes. I've been in business over 30 years. The business resides here in Belvedere. We built probably over 300 houses in the city of Belvedere. We think we've really put some quality into the community. Tonight, I'm here to talk about the townhomes of Riverbend. The townhomes of Riverbend, they're duplexes, but they're 1,500 square foot rental property. They're going to be more of an upscale rental. I think there was some confusion that people thought that they were going to be Section 8. That's not so. They're going to be rentals. They're going to be fully, have all the amenities to them for rentals. And I'd like to take a look at what's behind the project. You look at what is behind there, the bus station, the junkyard, the old blacktop plant, and then the new junkyard, or whatever you want to call it. And then you take a look at what's in front of it. It's got houses in front of it that are 175 to 250. And we built most of those houses. And I think what it's going to do, it's going to shelter from what's behind it, and it's going to complement the houses that are in front of it. So we really think it's a good thing. We think that the fees have really hurt us because we have no investment anymore to put into it because there's no value in the land anymore. And so the fees are really hurting us. And I guess with that being said, I'm open for questions or.
Council? I'd like to make a comment based on the testimony we've heard from everybody this evening. Mr. Knabe did come and see me. I still have the pictures of the housing that you proposed. Then we got into COVID and things just kind of got upside down. And Tom came and said, we have a project, we're ready to go. This is what we need to try to make it work with the bank. So I want to reiterate something that Connor Brown said. We expect that we will do this. This is not just for Tom. This is for anybody that wants to build, that's going to build quality product, and City of Belvedere. We're 800 in enrollment down in our school district. We spent millions and millions of dollars building beautiful new schools. We have spent millions and millions of dollars over the last 2 decades putting infrastructure in place that's not being utilized, that we still have to maintain. The impact fees are not a make or break kind of thing. They were put in place to manage growth when growth was exploding at a rate that was hard to keep up with. But the point has been made that we're not building anything anymore. And so we need to build homes. We need to build nice homes. We have a different clientele out there that is very hungry, and that is for condos or single-family patio homes, for seniors to downsize. We have between 1,200 and 1,500. It's hard to pin down the number. It changes a little bit from time to time. Young professionals that come to work in the city of Belvedere every day. They work in the clinics, the banks, the professional practices, and then they go and live on the east side of Rockford on Bell School Road or Mulford Road or Riverside, and they would love to live in the city of Belvedere if they could find housing of the type that they want. That doesn't only drive the housing market, again, but it also drives our sales tax, our use tax, and it creates an atmosphere in downtown that will help us with the upgrades that we've already made. It will push that envelope even further. So we welcome this conversation. I would encourage anybody here with the council to ask whatever questions you'd like of Tom. And I was very pleased and impressed that this whole group came together to come and speak with us tonight. So having said that, council, Wendy?
Are we still going to discuss this at the very end in 5?
We're going to discuss this next, if it so pleases you, instead
No,
of
that's
waiting
fine,
till-
that's fine. I just wanted to know if I should ask now or wait.
So in that vein, if it's all right with the council, since we're already in this discussion, if we rearrange the agenda and take the last item and take it next, show of hands? Well, that would be a quorum or a majority anyway. Does anybody at home have a problem with that? Okay, great, that's what we'll do. Please proceed.
I could be mistaken, but Tom, could you clarify, did last week, or maybe it was the week before, did you say that the bank was requiring that you needed $250,000? That's what you needed because your land was not worth money?
That's correct. There's no value to the land, so
Right.
they're making us put collateral up from other projects.
Okay, so you need $250,000.
That's what they're asking for, yeah.
Okay, so then my next question would be, is by us waiving impact fees and the application fees, is that going to help you up front with the bank?
Yes, definitely. I think what it's going to, I mean, if we can get these concessions, we're ready to start. The property's zoned, and, I mean, we're ready to start next week.
Alderman Stevens.
Is this not the property about a year or two ago we redid the zoning because the buildings were going to be owned by homeowners and the land was going to be owned by someone else and the banks wouldn't loan money on that?
No,
Not to my
no, it was
knowledge.
rezoned, and it was condos in 2013. I think I rezoned it to townhomes in
Okay.
2013.
So it was originally zoned SR for single family with a special use to allow the multifamily condos. Because banks are being difficult with condo loans and prefer townhouses. In 2013, Tom came back and rezoned it from single family with a special use for condos to multifamily and then replatted it so that there's 36 individual lots instead of one large lot. But from the initial annexation, it was always intended to be duplexes, but yes, there was some replatting and rezoning to accommodate banking practices.
That's what I thought we did. That's what I thought we
It's
did.
32 lots, right? 32
Yes, there's
two lots.
there's
so it'd be
36, yeah.
16,
There's 2 buildings there
okay.
already.
Well, I don't feel, I mean, we've heard talk about the building growth was stunted in 2008. Yes, it was. Before 2008, they were giving mortgages away to people who couldn't afford them. Those houses went into collection, and then we ended up going into this little recession because the builders and the realtors were giving high-dollar mortgages away to people who couldn't afford them. So we'll never see that again because they've changed them laws, thank God. So this doesn't happen due to greedy people.
Anyone else? Alderman Porter.
Well, just a couple points I'd like to make is, one, I think we have to keep in mind that the developer bought the property with the knowledge that he would have to pay these fees, at the time at least. And all reports that I'm hearing on the national news, and Debbie kind of confirmed that we are in kind of a housing boom right now as far as, because of the COVID virus, people are moving out of the big cities and trying to move into smaller cities and such. So it kind of seems to me that this $65,000 in fees that they're asking us to waive, they'd make back pretty quick because it seems like they would rent the units pretty quick. And it's just something to think about. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, if anybody wants to comment on that. And the other thing is, you know, we're going through the stormwater fee process here, asking the citizens to pay extra fees for the stormwater, you know, problem that we're having in the city here. And it seems like this $65,000 would go quite a ways towards that problem. And I'm not sure if we should be eliminating fees when we're, you know, asking people to pay this extra money for the stormwater problem.
Okay. Yes.
I've been contacted by citizens and have talked to citizens, and I've gotten nothing but negative remarks on this whole deal. I've had business people call me and ask me, when am I going to get these kind of breaks? I'm already providing jobs, providing sales tax. They want to know what's going to happen to them and how they're going to get these breaks. And like I said, the citizens that I've talked to are definitely against this. From every one of them I've talked to, I've had no one comment that this was a wonderful, fantastic idea.
Alderman Porter.
Just one other comment. I'll just bring up what I suggested before is maybe we should think about deferring the fees instead of waiving them altogether, just something to think about.
Other comments from the council?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Alderman Freeman.
So I'm with Alderman Stevens. I heard nothing but complaints and negative comments from my constituents. And yeah, they are concerned that we're going to implement a fee for our stormwater problem, but we're, on the other hand, giving away money to other people. And I don't disagree with their concerns. The other thing is, you know, if we're going to do away with impact fees, then we should just rescind that completely, until which time we can implement that again. My biggest problem with this whole thing is the tax abatement. The handout that I received in my packet a couple weeks ago from Mr. Howlett said that they are looking for the city to waive the building permits, the city's portion of the impact fees, and a 5-year tax abatement. Becky's paperwork is says 4-year tax abatement, which 4 years of the city's portion, including the impact fees, she's looking at $12,000. But if you look at the school, the library, the museum, the park district, the conservation, it really comes to about $307,000. That all those things impact the city, not just the city of Belvedere, but everybody that uses those other facilities. So that's quite a chunk of change. Over $307,000 was what I came up with for that. And if we're going to do that for Mr. Howlett, then everybody else is going to expect that too. And I don't see that that's in the best interest of the city in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Snow would like to say something.
Okay, please proceed, Alderman Snow.
So, I'm here with trying to have an open mind. I get all the concerns about the dollars and cents associated with the initial upfront cost that the city does without all this tax and fee revenue. So I'm looking for the administration and/or staff to clarify things. The other thing is that when it does come to the rest of these impact fees, whether it's the school or the park district, which have the bigger numbers on this, I'm assuming they haven't chimed in or haven't been approached or have already denied giving up portions of their fees associated with this. So, again, I'm looking for the administration to give us the dog and pony show on this, to either sell it or not. I get there's a lot of pros to this in the long-range deal, but again, these fees were put into play for a reason, and part of the impact fee was to collect the money up front for the fact that taxes are a year behind. So essentially a 5-year stay on Mr. Howlett's project is like a 6-year stay of taxes in reality. So it's a little tough. The other thing I want to point out about Mr. Howlett's floor design, no offense, but that den is most likely going to get used as a bedroom. So we are looking at not a 2-bedroom facility. It's going to be used as a 3-bedroom. That would be my concern. Again, increases everybody, but the school and park district would be, they get a higher dollar amount per bedroom. Just wanted to toss that out there so it's all out on the open. Again, if we do this for Tom, we need to do it across the board. And I'd also like to have Mr. Drell in his memo mention that a lot of the annexation agreements had this impact fee built into it, but those agreements are ready to expire on a lot of these subdivisions, and I'd like to know more about the timing of those expirations, so everybody knows where we're at with that. If we're talking a year or two, then maybe we don't do anything, but I don't know without more information on that. And that's it for the moment.
Alderman Frank?
Yeah, mine is similar to Dan Snow's. I was wondering if we're going to do this, how do we make up this money? Are we going to do taxes, Becky? Or do you perceive that we'll have to do more taxes to make up the difference?
Well, not necessarily, because you got to remember, this is revenue we don't have right now. If you know, if I'm hearing Mr. Howlett correctly, if he doesn't get some type of break, something to help him, it's just not going to happen. So this is homes that won't be built, new people that won't be moving in, people that won't be spending money at the stores if they already don't live here. So this is revenue that we already don't receive. Like he said, the property is worth basically nothing. We're barely getting anything for the property tax as it is.
Alderman Snow has a question in that regard.
Okay, Mr. Snow.
So how does the, if we do abate taxes on any given thing, and again, if we abate them for Tom, we should abate them for the bulk of everybody else, the aspect of, do they wind up paying the property tax and then the city winds up giving them a refund? Or, because if this goes into the world of we need X number of dollars and all the number crunching that occurs, these guys wind up not paying numerous $1,000s a year on rental on these rental properties for taxes. Then the rest of the citizens, every household, every property owner in Belvedere has to foot the bill for that. Not only it's not just a lack of money, we also get dinged for it because there's still X number of dollars that has to be generated from the property tax, and somebody has to pay that. And that means everybody else who's paying taxes is going to pay it. I'm just curious about that.
Thanks. Well, to answer your first question, you are correct. They would pay the property tax, and then the city would then reimburse them, similar to how we do the TIF districts right now. They pay the tax, and then we reimburse them those dollars. The second part, there's a lot of factors that play into that. If you recall, the city has not raised the property tax in 3 years, on our portion anyway. So obviously that goes into a factor as to how that tax is split among property owners. So there's a lot of moving pieces to that as well. But you're right, there is a certain dollar amount, and it does have to be spread out. Ideally, you want your commercial and your industrial to pay more of the property tax than your residential. But yes, there would be some loss there for a little while. I would hope it would make it up in other areas, though, such as the sales tax and the use tax and things like that.
And I guess that brings me to my next question, is the aspect that with rental property, technically in the taxing world, because it is rental property, they're not going to get homestead exemption on those parcels. So in the long run, the city will make more money as rental property to some extent. But to be quite frank, rental properties, regardless high end or low end, tend to have higher calls for service, both for fire and police. Not so much public works, I'm guessing, but anytime you have rental property, from everything I've read, that it is a higher call, and part of this was to keep the funding for the police and fire, again, to help recoup them in their extra costs that are associated with more people. Just tossing that out there for discussion.
Mr. Howlett?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up, you're talking about people who are against the fees and things like that. What would you do if you lived in that subdivision and you got a $200,000 house? Now you're gonna get people coming in there that can't afford these fees, and somebody comes in and they build a $140,000 house. Guess what happened to your equity? How are we gonna deal with that? We got a ton of empty lots, and that's gonna happen, that's reality. You're gonna see a lot of inferior product being built. And that is gonna happen, I'll guarantee it.
Well,
I've seen it in other communities.
in looking at this and looking at the communities around us, in Loves Park and McChesney Park and in Rockford, who have been building, they're filling up everything that they can build. They're adding population. As for Alderman Freeman's comments and Alderman Stevens' comments about the stormwater maintenance, that hasn't passed. We haven't passed that fee. That hasn't even been presented in fullness to anyone. That's up to the council and the community to weigh in on, to decide whether they want to do that or not. So that's irrelevant to this discussion, honestly. As far as the numbers about the taxation, those numbers are not correct either. So it boils down to this, folks. If we don't grow, we die. And then the share of what everybody has to pay to maintain the community does have to go up, because we have no new tax money coming in. As for the impact fees for the park district and the school district, we collect those and we control those. If we don't pay them out to them, we decide not to pay them out to them. So that also puts kind of a change on the way you look at that. A community that does not grow, and we're surrounded by growth, there's what's going to help us pay for the roads. The council has voted down our levy increase request for the past 2 years, which over a 5-year period of time, if they did vote it down, ends up costing us $1.5 million conservatively in funding for things. We have a balanced budget. Our reserve fund is in excess of what the requirement is. This is an opportunity for us to pay back our citizens tax monies that went into the expansion of the subdivisions and the building of the sewer and water. If you remember, well number 10 went in to serve those lots out there. That was, Brent, what was the total cost of that?
A little over $3 million.
We are not waiving connection fees or actual hard fees for things that cost the city to buy materials to install water connections or the labor to put them in. So what we're really doing is waiving fees that were invented to help control growth. We have no growth. So there's nothing that we need to control at this point in time. So those are the facts, actually. Anybody else have comments?
Yes, Alderman Snow has a question. You had mentioned something about the school and park impact fees, and that we collect them, and it's up to us to distribute them, and we don't have to distribute them. I'm a little confused. Could you clarify how that all works?
City Attorney?
I'll do that one first, and then if anybody wants clarification on other things that have been said, I can address that as well. With respect to impact fees, and I'm going to speak, impact fees is a misnomer, but what we refer to as impact fees being the school impact fees, the parks impact fees, the conservation impact fees. Those are imposed pursuant to our annexation agreements. They're also authorized by state statute when a property is subdivided. The method of calculating them is always up for debate. Back during the heyday, there were certain developers that always threatened lawsuits that we were calculating it wrong. And by using the annexation agreement process, by having them agree to it, they're kind of locked into them during that time period. But while the statute authorizes the collection of those fees, it is not required, and the decision to do so is completely up to the municipality. Excuse me, up to the municipality. Once we do collect them, we hold them essentially in trust for the districts. So we do have to disperse them when they ask for the money. So currently, we're holding some money for the school district, we're holding some money for the park district. I think we're still holding some money for the conservation district. Becky would have to clarify that. But once we do collect the money, that money does belong to them. And think of it as holding in trust for them until they actually ask for it.
but we are not required to collect the money. Alderman Fleury, you've been wanting to say something. Please proceed.
So, question for Becky. So I see on here we have the 2 years abatement or 4 years. So we determined which one we're going for, 2 or 4?
We discussed both at the last meeting, that's why I put both options down here, just to give you an idea. One's roughly 25,000, the other's 50,000, which I think is what Mr. Howlett was looking for.
So my question is, so like you said, currently we're receiving no revenue on there. So if we do the tax abatement for the asked 4 years, so how long is it going to take for the city to recoup that to then break even to then actually start collecting actual revenues?
Well, that's kind of a hard one. If you were talking about how much to recoup the impact fee cost, which would be the 65,000, you'd be looking at in your 6th year that we would have. So if we abated for 4 years and then collected for 6, so really it'd be 10 years before you would have recouped that 65,000 from the impact fee, if that makes sense.
Right, but then going forward after that 10 years, I mean, the property's there, so this would be an indefinite revenue.
Pure revenue for the city.
Once we pass that 10 years, so a break up front, and again, we can discuss with other builders, but in the short term, take a short 10 years to recover, and then you have unlimited growth there?
Correct, that would be pure revenue that would be part of your EAV, your estimated assessed value that would be part of your property tax base.
Yes, Alderman Porter.
Okay, I guess I have a question then, probably for Attorney Drella, would probably be the best person to answer this one. I realize that this would get a little bit complicated, but what about the idea of deferring the payments till a later date, say after they rent all the rentals and see how successful it all is, and then they pay the fees back in like a graduated sum later on down the road after everything's, rented and they're making money and that type of thing?
Two practical answers, and then just two practical answers. From the front end, keep in mind that the reason why Mr. Howlett's asking for this relief is he needs the money on the front end to help to be able to afford to start the building and to be able to afford the loans and get the bank to buy into the loans to actually do the construction. If you defer it and make him pay it up front, then he's got no relief on the front end, so it doesn't help him at all. The second practical answer is quite simply, and if you're talking about the impact fees and things like that, if you're saying pay us later, give you the front end relief, which might be what you're talking about, but if you then pay us in 5 years, well, not that I don't trust Tom Howlett, but the property could sell. You could be dealing with different people. You're talking about doing this for more than Mr. Howlett, you might be doing this for other subdivisions as well. Good luck chasing people down for your money at that point once the house is closed and it's been sold. It's much easier to collect your money on the front end or defer it on the front end, either one, because if you're going to try and give them relief later on, that gets to be problematic too. Who do you give the money to? Do you give it to the property owner or do you give it to Tom Howlett? It becomes problematic. The easiest way to accomplish the goal, if the goal is to spur, I don't want to say development, because we're not talking about new subdivision, we're talking about buildings in existing subdivisions. If the goal is to spur that development, and you believe that's necessary to spur that building, then the way to do it is the front-end relief like Mr. Howell's talking about. I want to point something out, because we are talking about existing subdivisions. Impact fees are developed and designed to obtain land or cash in lieu of land to put new infrastructure in, a new school, a new park, things like that. These subdivisions are built, the parks are built, the schools are built. You have about 374 single-family and multifamily vacant lots in the city of Belvedere corporate limits. I'm not including the Deer Hills Beaver Valley subdivision because that's not within our corporate limits. They don't pay taxes already, to us at least. If those don't build, you have a couple problems. I don't know how many of you got phone calls about the long grass and long weeds in Farmington East and Riverbend and all of that through the entire summer. That's occurring because builders that are not in this room didn't maintain their lots. the longer they sit vacant, the less likely those lots can be maintained. If you get them built upon, they're maintained. We don't have that headache as city council, as the city, chasing them to get them maintained. The residents will have clean lots next to them, hopefully. The next practical aspect of it is, think of mind how the tax levy works. You all figure out how much money you need for the previous fiscal year to operate. We all know it's really for the next fiscal year. Then they divide that by the EAV for the entire city and assess it to the properties. Well, those lots right now are being assessed at a much lower rate than they would be if they're assessed as built-upon lots. So by them constructing, you're actually either A, increasing the tax revenues to the city without increasing the taxes on the existing residents, or B, you could theoretically lower the taxes. Don't think that'll happen. Government never lowers its taxes. But you prevent the increase in taxes to your existing residents because you've increased the AV for the entire city. I'm not saying you should do this or not do this, but if you believe that the incentives will allow those 374 some odd lots to be built upon, then it's worthy considering and thinking about. Just my 2 cents. Legally, one of the aldermen mentioned annexation agreements. Most of our impact fees are assessed, well, they're all assessed 2 ways. One is through the annexation agreements. We prefer that because, number one, the developers agree not to sue us upon them if they don't like them. We also like that because it allows us a little bit of wiggle room as to when they pay them, time of building permit, time of platting, time of annexation, things like that. The fee is also contained in your subdivision control ordinance. It would be my position, I'm sure there's developers and other attorneys who would argue with me about it, but even after the annexation agreement expires, they still owe that fee because it's within our subdivision control ordinance. But those protections, that wiggle room that exists within the annexation agreement, that might go away at that point. So it becomes a little bit more of a gray area. It's much easier to impose it and collect it under the annexation agreement. But it does raise an interesting question. I've researched Mr. Howlett's annexation agreement. The fees, because they were deferred at the time of building permit, the fee we collect is what is in place on the day of the building permit being issued. So if there is no Public Works, Police, and Fire impact fee, then there's no Police and Fireworks, Public Works and Fire impact fee. It's that simple. There's no need to change the annexation agreement. I would have to check the annexation agreements for other developments to see if there's similar language in them.
Alderman Snow has a question again regarding the school and park district fee. Again, I'm a little vague on that. I don't get, we collect it, but it's up to us whether or not we want to collect it. So are we saying we're going to waive all the fees potentially?
There's been
including the park and the district and the conservation?
At this time, there's been no discussion about waiving park, conservation district, or school impact fees. The only discussion
Do
we
we
have,
have the ability to waive that?
legally, yes, you do. Obviously, I would recommend against doing that until you have buy-in or at least discussions with each of those taxing districts.
There are discussions going on with both of those boards currently. The Finance Committee of the school board is getting a presentation. I believe Neely was going to go to that meeting. There has been a discussion at the Park District already talking about the potential, and they're going back into their meeting this month to talk about it some more. So everybody's aware that without having new citizens, we're going to end up in a jam where we have increasing costs whether we have new citizens or not. And so as the costs increase, then either taxation has to go up on the folks that live here already to cover the cost to maintain the community. Or we have more people. That's why we built all these subdivisions in the early 2000s, was because there was a boom going on in America, and for us to be competitive with the surrounding region, we built all these beautiful subdivisions, and I get a little tired of driving past them and seeing grass 5 feet tall and signs for sale. You know, they're trying to sell 62 acres here and acreage here, and a lot of the fellas that are in this room built those houses that helped us attract citizens here, and they've always treated us right. You know, Deb sold a lot of real estate in this community, and without real estate to sell, what we're doing is trading used houses. And right now, we don't have enough. A house comes on the market and it gets snapped up like this. 70% of the people that work in the automotive industry don't live here. They drive from 70-mile radius because we don't have any housing for them. And they make good salaries, and they could be living here. The young professionals and the people that want to downsize here don't have options because we have about this many condos. And we can sell those or rent those in a heartbeat. That's what they do with every community around us. So, you know, this is a seminal moment in how we plan the future of our community, whether we're going to allow the community to not grow and the tax burden for the existing citizens to continue to go up as costs inevitably go up. And as far as programs that were mentioned, like stormwater management, every year since I came on this council in 2005, every time we have a big rain, we have a parade of people in here who are mad as hell because their houses flood, their streets flood, and so we were asked to find a solution. So we did it the professional way. We had a study done. We found out what an enormous problem it was. There's no way we can afford $42 million to do it next year. So then we had a study done on how we could do it in increments and how we could finance it. And we've not even arrived at the point where the full discussion or presentation has taken place yet about what that means and how we can finance and how we can do it. So that is nothing that has been passed, and it's nothing that is looming in the future immediately until that discussion is had with the community and with the council. And until you know all the facts, to start talking about things that are not appropriate is really out of place, I think. So, you know, this is up to you guys to make a decision whether we want to continue the discussion and look at how we solve our problems for the future and inviting new people to come live in our community. We have a beautiful community. We have very low crime, if any, you know, on occasion. We have excellent schools that now have room to grow. We have parkland. I mean, who wouldn't want to live here? I don't ever want to see us be in Schaumburg or Naperville, but if we've got 307 lots and you had 4 people in all those lots, that's 1,228 people. That's not a whole lot of people, but it helps change the metric of having 307 property holders that are now paying taxes, paying sales tax, paying gas tax, paying taxes with all of the stuff that they do on a day-to-day basis. So I think to dismiss this out of hand is not examining the issue and the challenge that we have thoroughly. Additional comments?
Alderman Snow has another comment or question or a couple.
Sure.
I do too.
Alderman Snow, please proceed.
Okay, so if it's good enough for us to reduce and eliminate our impact fees, as far as I'm concerned, the school district taxes like over 65% of our property tax, and they built us into building new schools that we didn't need, then I think they can take the hit. And as far as the park district, I'm not that familiar with their ins and outs, but if we can take the hit, they can take the hit, and then let's abate the tax less if we're going to do that. So now they're going to save on the impact fees for the school and park district and conservation district, and so we don't need to take as long of a hit on the tax abatement portion. And I guess my next question might be a little controversial in the fact that my understanding is the mayor was broached back during the winter about doing something with this, and it wasn't a good deal, but now all of a sudden it is. And I'm a little curious as to why the wind shifted in less than 6 months or so.
Okay, Mr. Snow, that's enough of that. Mr. Kanabe came to see me in, January or February? And we talked about this, and what I told him was I would go to the school and I would go to the park district and talk to them about joining with us to lower the impact fees. As we started those discussions, Dan Weisman's been to his board twice in the last 3 years and got voted down. We started those discussions again and COVID hit. And since COVID hit, there has been no discussions about this. And so when Tom came forward and asked about this specific project, we asked Tom if he'd be willing to come and present it to the council, at which time he did, and we started this process about a month ago, And hence, we have the invitations to all of the other builders and real estate people in the room for them to share the same idea that we've all had all along. So there, is that a good enough answer, Mr. Snow?
Sure.
Okay.
I have something to say.
Alderman Freeman, please proceed.
So, first of all, I have a few things, but first of all, the whole stormwater fee is relevant because, believe it or not, more people than you may think are paying attention to what's happening at City Hall. And when you have we're going to have to pass something to pay for our stormwater problem, whether it be a fee attached to a bill, a raise of a tax. There's going to be something that we have to do to fix this stormwater problem, and it's going to cost people money. So they're looking at, and we have one hand out asking for money, while the other hand is giving money away. It's not a good look. People are not happy about it, first of all. Second of all, as far as the boom and taxes, that boom did not lower anybody's taxes here in Belvedere. In fact, the taxes have gone up consistently other than the last 3 years when we failed to pass the tax levy. So building and booming does not lower anybody's taxes, nor does it make them taxes not go up. And, the whole impact fee thing is one thing. I get that that's an upfront cost, but the tax abatement, I cannot go with that because I know what my taxes are on a single-family dwelling per year here. So when you're looking at 16 units of 2 units of rental property for 4 years, that's a lot of money. And when you're renting a unit out, whether it's a house or apartment, that tax is incorporated into the rent you collect. Nobody rents out a property for what the house payment is without including the tax payment in with that rent. So Mr. Howlett is going to be collecting money as per rent on those units to pay the taxes. And the other thing I wanted to say to Mr. Howlett is the reason nobody built a $200,000 house across the street from the other $200,000 houses is because nobody wants the Rabine asphalt plant or the school bus barn in their backyard. So otherwise, those lots would have been built. Now, when you build rental property, typically the rental properties are not as well kept up as somebody that owns the unit. Not always, but in most cases, rental properties seem to go downhill. So in turn, that's going to bring down the property values of the $200,000 across the street in the long run anyway. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Howlett, would you like to?
Yeah, if you'll take, I don't know if you got the drawing on the rentals there.
Yes, I do.
I hate to say they're more of an upscale. The rents are probably going to be like $1,500 a month. And we take care of all the maintenance. We mow the lawns. They're fully furnished. So, we don't let our properties go down. We keep them up. We get good renters. And that's what we want. And that's what determines if you get a good renter, if you keep your properties up.
Yes, Alderman Porter.
Just one question. Are these units also available for sale if the person wants to buy them like a condo, or is it strictly rentals?
Strictly rentals, long-term. My daughter is coming to the business, and we're not only doing this here, this project here, we're going to other communities too. And to answer your question, Marcia, for us, we've got to put probably 20% more into this project to build it here, down payments, versus where we would take it somewhere else and do it. So, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, we can only do so many projects. And if we go sticking our eggs in one basket, I mean, we won't do that. And my question is, and maybe somebody can answer this, we got all these lots here, how come nobody's built on them? They've been sitting there for 10 years. 10 years. And nobody's built on them. I think it's time to take a step and reduce these fees and then go to the school board. Show them that you're willing to try to make things work.
I think if we wait till everybody's in accordance with doing this, this opportunity is going to pass us by, quite frankly. I think if we take the bold step of being the first ones to do this, as I said, the discussions have already started with the Park District Board and with the school board. I think that it may make some sense to them. I also think that we have a lot of challenges right now with COVID and an impending recession. And I think that people are moving out from the cities. I would agree with the comment that I heard before. We have a perfect opportunity because we have all of the infrastructure in place. We don't have to raise the money to put sewer and water. We don't have to raise the money to put wells. We don't have to raise the money to put roads. All of that's already in. All we have to do is allow the builders to build houses to put people in them. And if making an accommodation for growth is the way that we need to do that based on what we're able to do to attract people, I had put forward, I think I talked to John about this, I thought, and I talked to Tom about this. I had proposed that we rebate the property tax to the homeowner, 1/3 a year for 3 years, or the equivalent of 1 year's property tax to attract people to come. And so that can be part of the discussion too. As far as the framework of 2-year or 4-year, that's what our job is collectively as the administration and the city council, to take that under advisement and try to find a solution. This isn't a, you have to do this or you have to do that. It's a discussion. And so the idea to be very open about what all the opportunities and potentials and thoughts are, then it's up to us to work collectively to find an answer to see if we want to do this or not. This is a democracy. This comes back, Mike, would this come back in ordinance form? How would this come back to the council?
Glad you asked that. There's actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, but 3 different, refer to them as incentives or what have you, that we're talking about. One is the property tax abatement. The next is a waiver of the police, fire, and public works and city admin impact fees. And the last one would be a waiver of, I can't recall if we're doing some or the entirety of the building permit fees. The first 2, I prefer to bring back in at least resolution form, probably ordinance form, for the simple reason that the property tax, it's a pretty important thing. We want to set up a system by which the tax bills are presented and then we reimburse the money, so I'd want to do that by ordinance. The actual original impact fees were imposed by ordinance, so I'd want to, if we're going to waive it, I'd want to do that by ordinance as well. And then the building permit fees, we probably do that as a simple motion or resolution, but ordinances are cheap if the other ones are being done that way also. I might try to slide the building permits into one of the other 2 ordinances, though, just to save paper. At any rate, I'd prefer separate motions on them so I know what to draft.
Okay. One other comment. Someone made a comment about rental property tends to run down. Any condo property that's available in the city of Belvedere is not run down and has gone up in value quite a bit and is very well maintained. Well-maintained houses, there are more rental properties now than there are new homes that sell. There are whole subdivisions that are nothing but rental houses in McChesney Park and Loves Park in that area, and they're nice houses, and they rent. And they rent. A lot of people don't want to invest in a house because they don't know about their job or they don't know what they want to do in the future, so they rent a nice house and they pay a premium price for doing that. and reputable builders keep up the property, keep the snow plowed, the grass mowed, and there are a list of different options. Rockton has a lot of houses like that, that are in a beautiful subdivision that are rental houses. So, you know, if you look around the region and see what is really making the real estate market and the builders hum, then I think you have a pretty good idea what makes some sense for us, since we already have all the infrastructure in place. So I guess what I would ask the council is, doesn't sound like we're gonna get proposals tonight from everybody. It sounds to me like everybody wants to visit about this, but would it be appropriate to have the city attorney draft some proposed resolutions and ordinances to bring back for further discussion, and then make changes to those precisely after you've had time to talk to the folks that you've all talked to about this, and maybe share with them all of the points of this discussion that we had tonight? Because again, it really comes down to all of us together making a decision for our community for the future. Alderman Frank?
The orator has a question.
Please proceed.
As for Attorney Drella, theoretically, if the city waives these fees, could that possibly open us up to possible litigation from previous developers that have paid these fees?
There's never any litigation because you can sue anybody for anything. However, I feel very comfortable about our position legally if anybody were to try to do that. My bigger fear had been, for example, other purchasers within the same subdivision subject to the same annexation agreement having an issue with respect to waiving the fees when they haven't paid them, the developer paid them, but it's really the same developer for a lot of it. But because of the way the annexation agreement's written, I mentioned that earlier, that they pay the fee in place at the building permit time, I feel very comfortable with our legal ground there as well. So, I mean, you can't promise you'll never get sued because you get sued for anything, but I think we are on strong legal ground.
Alderman Snow has a question in regards to this whole thing. So when the impact fees, generally speaking, are just for the places that had the pre-annexation agreements of your new subdivisions, and then when it comes to waiving builder the fees associated with the permit, at this point there are not boatloads, but obviously Habitat for Humanity's used quite a few, but there are a number of lots throughout the town that somebody might want to build a house on, and would they get the same treatment as far as the waiving of the permit fees and the tax abatement? Because just because they're not in the new subdivision, I would think we'd have to treat everybody the same in that regard. The only thing that wouldn't get waived would be impact fees because they're not subject to that. Just tossing that out there for discussion.
Actually, Mr. Snow, you are potentially incorrect on part of your assumption. There are houses that are not within one of, I'll call them the new subdivisions. Let's qualify that as saying post-2004 subdivisions, where they are still subject to impact fees. Remember, I mentioned that impact fees are also contained in your subdivision control ordinance. So if they were subdivided after that ordinance was put in place, and the original ordinance dates back, I want to say, to the 80s or 90s, we amended it in 2004, they would also be subject to the impact fees. So there are houses, or lots, I should say, within the corporate limits of the city of Belvedere that are not part of the post-2004 annexations that are still subject to some impact fees. There are some that are not. They're part of the original town of Belvedere. They were platted before we ever had impact fees in place. There's a few of those. And there are no impact fees associated with those lots. And so every time somebody comes in to pull a building permit, the building director has, or his department has to go back and look at that lot and see if there's impact fees associated with that lot. Quite frankly, not every subdivision pays the same impact fees either. It all depends on when they're platted and what the status of their annexation agreement is and things like that. They do vary to some extent from subdivision to subdivision.
how about the building permit?
Let me put it this way, this is all up to the city council. If you want to look at doing a grander plan of waiving building permit fees and some of the impact fees across the board, we can certainly look at doing that. And that's one of the reasons I mentioned the 374 vacant lots in the city. But it's up to the 10 aldermen and women and the mayor to give the direction to the staff as to how broad or narrow you want this kind of a program to be.
Alderman Frank.
I was just going to say that I've had an open mind, and I've really moved from where I was. Thankfully, for some of the people that are here that have spoke up, I've got like 4 pages of notes. But I don't know what I don't know yet, so I'd still like to be able to reach out to some of these people. I'm not saying I'm just saying I'm not there yet.
That's fair. Alderman Porter and then Alderman McGee.
I just had one question. I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Maybe I misunderstood this, but this property, does the developer own this property now? And if so, when did they buy it, or is this just still city property?
What are you talking about?
I've owned it for 14 years.
And the city has never owned this property. It's always been privately held.
And he's paid the taxes on it for 14 years, too.
Correct.
Yeah, so Alderman McGee.
But we're at a crossroads, too. I mean, we're at a crossroads now to where if we don't get the concessions, we're going to sell it. We're going to take the tax credits, take the loss, and move to a different county. And I hope I'm not offending anybody, but we're going to do that. It's pretty simple.
Alderman McGee.
I just got a comment. I've had a couple conversations with Tom, and the way I see it, I'm on board with waiving fees in order to kickstart this project, along with any other projects we can get as far as home builders go. My biggest thing, I think I look down the road at where are we going to be if we don't do this, and we're going to be looking at empty lots, and I don't think that's where we want to be personally. But
Alderman Revelo.
We've done land surveys. Does it flood in that area if we start building? Will people have problems?
No, never had any water problems there.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the council then? Should I have the city attorney draft some samples for us to look at, what those would look like? And it doesn't have to be 4 years or 5 years. It could be 2 years, and let's see how it goes. You know, it's all in your hands. You know, I think we have to do something or do nothing. And doing nothing, we had 9 housing starts in the last 2 years, where there have been hundreds of houses built all around us, McChesney Park, Rockton, Loves Park. So what's the pleasure of the council?
I guess I have another question, which brings up if we go the route of waiving a bunch of fees, reducing the cost of initial building, are we going to potentially inundate the building department, and do they have the staff to accommodate what's going to need to be done? And the other thing is, because I do have Ward 2 encompasses Distillery Road, which has a significant vacant lot supply, and a number of people that I've talked to that do have property out there have voiced the concern that even if they try to sell the place, they can't find buyers because of the high cost of building just on permit fees and impact fees. So again, you're missing out potentially on tax revenue for this stuff. I'm not necessarily jumping up and down for the tax abatement. That really doesn't jump out at me, but definitely would go for short term and not long term by any stretch. Just tossing that out there.
Kip, would you like to speak to the building department?
Yeah, in regards to 32 building permits, I think staff right now could handle it. And I'm in favor of, as each developer comes forward to council for incentives, then council will need to address at that time the impact on city staff. I also want to point out when these subdivisions were designed, and Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, the detention and all the storm sewer systems were designed prior to the annexations of these subdivisions. So the impact of the stormwater is going to be a lot minimal compared to the developments that have been the existing subdivisions prior to 1990s or so, when we started implementing the engineering for the stormwater systems for the detention for these subdivisions. Now we're having problems with the ponds, and the subdivisions are being sold to investors out of state that are buying these detention ponds, and they won't mow them. Now, if we get these subdivisions and they get their homeowners associations back in form, then they can, each property owner can pay to get these lots maintained and the detention areas maintained. But with them just sitting there, our staff spends a lot of our time this year hunting down the people that are buying all these lots and detention ponds and stuff and getting them to mow them. So that's all I want to say.
Alderman Snow has a comment. Again, my deal would be what's good for one is good for the whole group. I don't think looking at it on an individual development, because then that's just cherry picking and giving favoritism potentially to others. And I think what's good for one is good for all. Even if we just put this as a 2-year stint or something like that to see how things go and then extend it, or something like that. But as far as looking at it as a per development, I think everybody should be on the same playing field.
Some of these subdivisions have in their annexation agreements certain caveats as to what will be built and what will not be built. I don't think the thought was to cherry pick anything, Mr. Snow. I think the idea was these are reputable people here in this room, builders who have built hundreds of houses in Boone County previously, and we would simply like to have them come forward and share with us what they're going to build, so that the council's aware of what the houses are going to look like and what their price points are going to be, and so if they're in concert with the surrounding homeowners. Would that be correct, fellas? Okay. Yes.
This is Attorney Drell. I didn't realize we've been on this subject now for about an hour and 5 or 10 minutes or so. One couple points. First of all, to the question of, it's good for the gander, good for the goose, do it for everybody. That might be a good way to go with respect to the police, fire, and public works impact fees. Certainly, it'd probably be easier to do it that way because it's our own fee. I'd want to look at each of the annexation agreements to make sure that we don't run into a problem there. With respect to the building permit fees and maybe even the property tax abatements, one thing you have to remember is one of the glorious things about being a home ruling municipality is we can do developer agreements, and we can tie some of these incentives to you will pull X number of building permits, you will commit to building these many buildings in order to receive this kind of an incentive. So, if you want to say, look, if they reach a development agreement with the city approved by the council, then we'll consider waiving building permit fees. You don't have to not all of them have to be across the board. Not all of them have to be limited to just one subdivision. We have the ability, because there are different incentives, that we can mix and match it a little bit. I want to throw that out there. And to give you an idea, Alderman Snow, because you started to mention what I used to be called the Hardeman annexation, which is Distiller Road. Off of Shaw Road, which is Whispering Meadows, there are 15 single-family vacant lots and 42 multifamily vacant lots out there. In the section that I'll refer to as, I gotta get down there now. Where's Distiller Road? Klein's Ford has currently only 7 vacant single-family lots. That one's mostly built out. Belvedere Prairie Place currently has 36 vacant single-family lots. I'm not going to mention Deer Hills because that one's actually not in the city. Down off of I believe this is Distillery Road in the village of, I'm sorry, in the River Run subdivision, 31 vacant single-family lots. And I had the one across the street here someplace, but I'm not finding that right now. We had our GIS department actually draw up a bunch of them. I'm sorry, the preserve, 37 vacant single-family lots. So a lot of these, especially off of Distillery Road, there's a lot of vacant lots out there that could be built on. And again, you can pick and choose what incentives are available based upon whether they do a developer agreement tied to the number of building permits pulled and things like that. That is certainly within the realm of possibility.
And Alderman Snow has a comment. I don't necessarily feel I or the rest of the council is probably qualified to sit there and go, oh yeah, we want, start restricting based on incentives what people build as far as what they choose to build as a home, whether they do it themselves or as a developer in that regard. There's either already built-in requirements, whether it's the number of garages. I think the stuff out at Shaw Road, I thought that we recently changed that so that they could pull the garages forward instead of having to be flush or pushed back from the house. But again, I don't think that would be in our purview to sit there and be qualified to say that yes, that's going to make the huge difference in whether or not we approve or disapprove somebody to go that route. That's just my thought. I just don't feel A, qualified, or B, that's a market-driven thing by the builder, whether or not he's going to do something, because he's not going to build something he's not going to be able to sell.
That discussion has not been had by anybody here at staff as far as designing the home, so to speak, as a part of this process. I will say that in some of the annexation agreements and some of the special use, some of these subdivisions were created pursuant to planned unit development special use. Some of those do have design criteria in them. For example, where the garage is located, many of the more modern annexation agreements and special use PUDs have anti-monotony language within them. That would not change. I mean, that's still there. But we haven't discussed modifying any of that as part of this discussion.
Nobody's asking the council to design houses, Mr. Snow. Builders come forward, usually with a real estate partner, and say, this is what we would like to build, and this is why we feel it's appropriate for this subdivision and at this price point, at which point their presentation is evaluated by the council, and the council makes the decision whether that seems to be a good idea. And that's how it's always been done. All of the annexations and all of the design criteria, there are building codes that have to be met and inspections that have to be done, but it has been the councils that have ultimately approved presentations that have come forward on design and spacing and all of those kinds of things. We've had some very reputable builders and real estate people that built our beautiful neighborhoods that are the newer neighborhoods here, but we haven't built any in a real long time. So, that's, and we've done a pretty good job of renewing and revitalizing a lot of the houses that are in the city, and that process still continues on. So, all of the things that come to council are a discussion for the council to analyze, talk to their constituents, come back and weigh what the merits of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it are, and can we afford it. When we start getting out of sync and start talking about stuff, we never did it. Baxter Woodman was approved to do the stormwater study on the south side of town. I think it was unanimous from the city council, or one disdain. We had the study done. They came back and told us bad news, $42 million. Well, we knew we weren't going to be able to do that. So then we interviewed, how many was it, Mr. Stevens? 6 or 7?
6 or 7, yes.
Folks that wanted to do an implementation plan for us. They were all seasoned people, have done it for a lot of other communities. We had a panel including aldermen. It was decided, it was brought to council, it was voted on, it was approved. And now they've come back, and we've not even gotten to the point we've allowed them to present what their finding is. And there's communication, well, it's a rain tax, it's a this, it's a that. And all it is trying to solve the problems of this community, and the decision makers are the people who sit in the seats of the city council. So there has been nothing that's gone forward past an initial discussion that hasn't been approved by the city council. That does not mean that when we get to the end game, that you are necessarily going to approve something. But unless we make the effort to solve the problems that we're encountering in our community, then we're not doing our jobs. And so this is time, and we've wanted to do this. I mean, the builders will tell you, I've talked to them for several years, that we've wanted to really do this. Neely will tell you that we've wanted to do this, to find a way to stimulate growth, because we weren't building any new houses, and we've spent tens of millions of dollars on infrastructure that's not being used, that our taxpayers funded. And so I kind of look at it, the people in this community as investors in this business that's called the City of Belvedere, and they'd like to get a payback on the investments that they've made over the last 20 years. And the dream isn't any different. It's the same subdivisions. We want them to look, nice and filled with houses. This is not something new. This is just a chance to revisit and fill up the empty spaces we've got, get our number of kids back in our schools that we paid hundreds of millions of dollars for, and move forward, because everything else is going well. Our industrial growth is great. Downtown looks great. So this is all just part of the entire process. And sorry, I'm going to need oxygen. I'm tired of talking.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we're getting there. It's just that we're not there all at the same time. 2 weeks ago, we got a one-liner that said he was going to do a public comment, and then this week we got something. So we're on a start. We're getting information. I have 4 pages of notes. I think if we could reach out to any of these people in the audience with a phone number so that we can ask questions, we're going to get somewhere. It doesn't mean that we're all going to shut it down.
No, you can talk to them anytime you want. What, you want a list? You want us to
Yeah.
furnish you with a list?
This is the first time I've seen some of these people. I don't know them from Adam. So yeah, I would like to reach out to them and get their phone numbers and their name. If they want to write it down here, I'll definitely be calling.
Okay. Anybody else tonight? We've got more of an agenda. Yes, Alderman Arevalo.
Well, so we can freeze all the impact fees or eliminate them. And if in the future council, whoever is elected, they can implement it again in the future? If that's a way, if we can try to get houses, townships, or condominiums built, if we see if there's an excess of, not these builders, but in the future developments, then we could implement again impact fees.
City Attorney?
I'm sorry, I didn't know if that was a question or statement. Excuse me. Yes is the easy answer. And then there's a qualification that could be very long. I don't know that everyone wants to sit here and listen to it. Again, I want to look at the existing annexation agreements for each one to ensure that we don't run afoul of those. The institution of impact fees is not difficult. It's an ordinance, one way or the other. The difficult part is the study you do, no different than the stormwater study. The study you do to justify the amount of the impact fee, and that's a study of the value of land and things like that. Frankly, that's a study that should probably be done every few years anyway, and we haven't done it since 2004.
So, Mr. Howlett?
Yeah, I just want to say that, you've got a project here that there's going to be 32 rentals. We're putting $4 million in it. We'd like to get started this year. It seems like that's eluding us, and we just can't afford for that to happen. And, if we don't get some votes on this, then I think we're just going to move on down the road with the project.
So, Council, do you want me to have the city attorney draw up some preliminary ordinances for us to look at next week?
Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, sure. Do we need to vote on that? Show of hands? Motion? What's appropriate, city attorney?
There's two ways you can handle it. If you simply want to direct me to draft something and bring it back to committee, at the next committee meeting, a simple direction for me to do that is sufficient. If you want me to bring something back to city council in 1 week in the form of an ordinance on the ones that require ordinances, then you need a motion and a second and a vote on each one of these incentives. So I guess what I'm saying is if you want to move it out of committee, then yeah, you need to vote on each one. If you're leaving it committee for me to come back with ordinances, a simple direction for me to draft the ordinance and bring it back to committee is sufficient.
My only concern, and I think this is Mr. Howlett's concern, is he wants to build this year. And so committee's another 2 weeks, and we can have another presentation, and then it's council after that, and then we're in the middle of October. So I'll leave it up to you guys. It's what you want to do. Do you want to make a motion on each of these items and bring them back for our look next week? They can be voted down if we don't like them. Of course, you can always amend.
Typically be amending a second reading, but you could always have me draft them for next week. If you really want to, you can bring it back to the intervening committee like we've done with the zoning sometimes, and that second reading make more changes as well.
So what's your pleasure? It's not for me to decide.
This is Alderman Brereton.
Yes, sir.
Just before we move forward, I just want to say that I've received 99% negative feedback on this project, 1% positive, and I'm not a fan of the way it's just being rushed through. That's all I got.
Okay. So how do we want to proceed?
I'd rather see it come back to committee meeting.
Show of hands. Show of hands. Okay, I got 3 hands here. Who wants to have it come back in resolution or ordinance forms next week? Show of hands. I got 3 hands there. What say you at home? Brereton's a no. Who else?
Snow, he would just not assume rush it through. I get the point of time is, for the building cycle, is important, but if this works out and we iron it out correctly, we can always waive the 2-week layover. Is that correct, Attorney Drella?
The council always has that option.
So Snow would say bring it to the committee in 2 weeks.
And what exactly do you all want at committee in 2 weeks? That you don't have? That we need to know what
Snow would
what you
say,
want.
give us what the administration thinks that they want to do as far as waiving the impact fees going forward for everybody, and waiving the building fees, the permit fees for everybody, what the administration sees appropriate, and let us know what the existing things are as well. I don't want to have a number thrown at me, well, we're going to reduce the payment to this. Well, what was the payment? So, and then give us an ordinance, and I wouldn't go more than 2 years on the tax abatement ordinance. That's my thoughts.
Attorney Drella, you nodded your head. You understand what he's talking about what they are now and what they will be?
I'm assuming he's referring to the permit fees.
You talking about permit fees, Dan?
Yes, because those are known fees, or, and if we're going to waive them, I want to know what it is we're waiving, what the old is and what the new is, or what we're reducing it.
As I thought I made clear earlier, the discussion tonight is for 32 units. Let each developer or house builder come to council or come to staff with what they're proposing. Each subdivision is its own subdivision, and they're all different. I don't have a crystal ball on what each developer in town is going to ask for. We're just trying to give what Tom came to us and asked for and let it be on a case-by-case basis. And as we stated to Tom from the beginning, staff can make all the recommendations we want, inevitably, council has to approve it.
And Alderman Snow doesn't necessarily agree with that, and I think the rest of the aldermen need to chime in if they can.
I actually agree with that. I think it should be a case-by-case basis.
So, if you would all do me a favor, since everybody's had a lot to say tonight, if you would all take the time to email to the city the specific things that you want to discuss at the next committee meeting, because what we're doing here is just pushing this forward, pushing it forward, and we need to know exactly what you need so we have the specific answers that you have, so you can pick from the menu on the things that you think should be included and that you don't want to include, so we can get it into some type of ordinance form, so we can move it ahead, so there's still time in this building season for Mr. Howlett to start construction. Because that's what he's asking us. And what he's really saying to us is if he doesn't get to do something and start this year, he's gonna go do it someplace else. And, you know, I don't think that's a threat. I think he's been very calm and been here for weeks, coming to meetings and talking to us about things. So I think we offer him the courtesy of finding out specifically what we need to find out about this. And we are not able to make decisions on what every single builder that's in the room would like to do because we don't know. So,
Mr. Mayor, absent a motion to move this forward tonight to council, absent that motion having been made or being made, what I'll do is I'll actually prepare different sets of ordinances to have ready for at the next committee meeting. One will be basically a citywide type ordinance, as if you're going to waive them citywide, or at least as far as we can go within the realm of the existing annexation agreements. And the other one will explore the possibility of just handling Mr. Howlett's subdivision at this point, with other ones having to come forward. So you have them all in front of you, and you can have the discussion which route you want to go.
yes, Alderman Fleury.
Just a question. So tonight, we've had the opportunity to have several builders here and several realtors talking about the pros of this, and I've heard from other council members that there's 90% and 99% people that are against it. So could we put out an invitation for a public comment next time for someone that's against this so we can hear their opinion? Because what I've heard tonight seems to be a positive thing. Maybe some minor disagreements here, but it sounds like a positive thing for Belvedere to grow and increase our revenue overall.
Yes, I think it'd be great to have some of all these people that have been negative about it come and tell us about it at council. Yes.
And also do their homework too.
Yeah. So, is that as it stands? Yes.
I just have a question for Tom. What is your cutoff date in your mind where you need to have a vote on this in order to start construction this year? I mean, is it anything past November 1st, you're out, or is it October 1st? Or, I mean, do you have something in your mind?
Well, that's tough with the weather. I mean, we're getting close. We're getting close.
Okay. So, Attorney Drelly, you have your marching orders. I would invite you all to stay for the rest of the agenda if you'd like, but do appreciate your coming tonight, appreciate your input. Everybody need to take a little bit of a break. Jumping jacks might be in order.
Now we can get into the real exciting stuff.
Do we have to remind the council before the next vote that Alderman Hermel is present?
Gina, 3.5 minutes.
Alderman Hermel is present, that she wasn't present for the vote. I will, I just didn't know if we had to let the people on the phone know. I mean, he's been talking.
Hey, Mayor, can I share something with you real quick? Yeah. So with all the changes that have been going on, particularly in some of the urban centers, I was talking with some of the Chicago Association of Realtors, and for some of the areas that were probably white hot in terms of how they were in real estate have now turned ice cold. Like River North, Gold Coast, they now have 2 years worth of inventory because of how many people are putting their condos on the market. So by comparison, we got about a month and a half worth of inventory, just if we were to sell everything at the same pace as we are right now. So there is really kind of enormous opportunity. I know we had a chance to talk a little bit about it at the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, you know, just how we're totally rethinking our workforce and, you know, throughout the region, and how we got people that, you know, are attorneys that are working here, that are working for outfits in LA, Houston, places like that. So it's really kind of a neat opportunity that we have before us. So just wanted to share that with you.
I would totally agree, and that's the direction economic development has gone, where transportation is gone, where education is gone. I was reading VRBO, and like businesses were almost bottom up.
Yeah.
Now they're booming because people can work wherever they want to work.
Yeah.
People are moving out of the urban centers. I mean, this could be a golden era for our community.
I have a cousin who works for, she and her husband work for a multi-billion-dollar energy company in Houston. They've lived in Florida, New York, Montana, and then at her parents' house outside of San Francisco, all since COVID. So it's really totally changed. So, but thank you. Appreciate it. Time.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Definitely.
And that's the Hillsdale Chargers, not the San Diego Chargers. You and I went to the same college.
Same class?
No. No, not by a long shot. Romero's older than he is.
He's older than he is. He looks older. That's not nice.
Sorry. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't do that to you. We all back? Are we ready to go, folks? Okay, under public forum, we have none this evening. Under reports of officers, boards, and special committees, under building, planning, and zoning, unfinished business, there is none. Under building, planning, and zoning, new business, Gina will talk to us about the downtown facade improvement grant program. And I suspect you're looking for an omnibus motion to approve the projects as presented.
Yep. So if you remember last year, the council enacted the downtown facade grant program, which offered a 50-50 grant for exterior renovations. That grant is funded through video gaming revenue. Since the gaming machines were shut down for 2 months of this fiscal year, when I sent the letters out to all eligible properties, I made it clear in the cover letter that the applications are going out because if the grant does go through this year, we need the projects in now so that we can hit the building season. However, it is not a guarantee because of the video gaming shutdown. I think that had something to do with the low response rate, and also it is a 50-50 grant, so property owners need to have their share of the money as well. Last year we had about 23 applications. This year we had 4. The 2 biggest ones are for porch repairs on the flower bin and on the Alexander House, which is the property next to Boone County, Got Kids and Boone County Auto Body. It used to be teal, now it's gray. The Historic Preservation Commission both encouraged those projects to be approved because although the aesthetic aspect of it isn't huge because there's porches there, but there's a significant safety aspect. When you walk on it, the boards are breaking under people's feet, the steps are slanted so much, they're just not safe. And these are two businesses open to the public that are not safe for people to enter at the moment. So there's definitely a safety aspect for those two. Taft Insurance requested to fix a broken window and tuck point and paint the building. They also requested the same thing last year, and they were one of the properties that we chose that if there was extra money, because say, projects came in under budget, they would have been a second round winner. So he applied again. It's a good project. Obviously we want broken windows and bad bricks to be fixed downtown. That was one of the purposes of the grant, was to improve the downtown properties, which then, improves the city as a whole. So commission was positive for his grant reimbursement as well. The fourth one is for PNC Bank for ADA accessible doors. They have those now, but they want new ones. Obviously, ADA compliance is a good thing. However, this won't significantly impact aesthetics or safety, so therefore it was brought to the bottom of the totem pole. Although there was originally budgeted $18,300, again with 2 months of video gaming revenue out, the commission and staff wasn't sure how much council wanted to approve funding wise. Although now that machines are turned on, July numbers were really good. They were the highest numbers since gaming started in town. So I don't think the numbers are going to be horrible by the end of the fiscal year, but still if the council wanted to be cautious, then the Historic Preservation Commission voted the 2 porches as priorities because of safety, then Taft Insurance because this is the second year applying of the aesthetics, and then PNC Bank as the last one.
So you're looking for a motion to approve the projects as presented?
You could either approve so that all of them get funding, which would be $17,652, which is still under the original budget amount, or you can approve the top 3 in order to give yourself a little bit more cushion. Either one of those options.
Well, I'd propose that we go ahead and fund them if we're under budget. May I have a motion to that effect?
I'd make the motion that we do all 4 of them.
I have a motion from Alderman Stevens. May I have a second from Alderman Porter? Questions, comments, or further discussion? Alderman Revelo?
Hey, thank you, Jim. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from people saying how the downtown has been changing, just like the aesthetics, everything getting painted. Some people go to the Geneva and Palatine, they're comparing it, like how we're doing a good job now.
Yep, between the grant money that Historic Preservation does with their fundraisers and this grant that the city does, when you drive downtown, there's been a significant amount of buildings that have been repainted, that have new windows put in. If you look at the Masonic Temple, that weathered wood is off the 3rd story, and there's finally windows in there. The one next to Boone County Shopper, that really ugly canopy's down, and he exposed the original columns and stuff. So, yeah, several buildings. And I think it's because it's a little bit of peer pressure. As buildings start getting nicer, it puts pressure on the other property owners to step up the game, because if it's between someone wanting to rent your space or your neighbor's space, they're going to rent space out of the nicer building. So there's definitely a peer pressure domino effect going on.
So I have a motion and a second. Are there any other?
Snow has a question.
Yes, Alderman Snow.
So for the PNC Bank, it talks about 2, I assume these are the push-button deals to allow the door to open automatically to get in. And it says 2 of them, but is that just like for the back door area where the elevator is, facing toward the Salvation Army Plaza, or is it for both front door access and back door access?
It was my understanding that it was for the State Street side, and then for the main parking lot side by the elevator.
So just the exterior doors would open, because there's only two. It says it's for a grant for two.
Correct. This grant is
And-
only for exterior renovations. Years ago, there was a different facade grant that was used for inside stuff that left with the tenants. So when we rewrote the grant program last year, it is very clearly defined that's only for exterior permanent features.
Okay, so the secondary doors going into the bank, they would have to provide their own funding for that as far as not having grant money available.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously, which brings us to item 3, Public Works, unfinished business. Under A, we have stormwater utility implementation phasing, which was tabled. Do we want to entertain a motion to take it off the table? Director Anderson says no. Under number 4, Public Works new business, we have ordinance 505H, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of property for the Logan Avenue right-of-way expansion. May I have a motion to approve?
Snow, make that motion.
A motion by Snow, may I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Second by Arivalo. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Yes.
I have a
Alderman Porter.
question.
Alderman Porter first, and then Alderman Freeman. Alderman Porter, please proceed.
Okay, I have a two-part, actually a question and then a comment after that. But are we talking about acquiring this through eminent domain? Is that what we're going to do?
I can address most of this. The council actually already approved attempting to purchase many of these lots. They'll come back to council in the form of a purchase agreement for each, well, actually, no, they won't. They've already approved them. At any rate, yes, we're looking at eminent domain on this one because the property owner refuses to respond to our requests to purchase it outright from him. So the best practice in using eminent domain, though, is to first have an ordinance by the council saying, city, go out and offer the fair market value of the land. And then when he refuses again, we come back to you and get another ordinance authorizing the use of the eminent domain. But the purpose of this is to start the process with respect to this specific lot because the property owner simply won't respond to us.
Okay, so, well, I'm a little conflicted on this one because I'm 100% for getting the whole city ADA compliant. I really believe in that and think it needs to be done, but I do have a problem with eminent domain, taking property that way. I don't agree with it, and I don't know how it ever got passed. But that's what I was going to recommend, that we try a little bit harder to contact the owner instead of taking it by eminent domain, but it sounds like you say this is the first step in the process, so I can go along with that.
It is the first step in that process, and yes, we'd make another attempt to contact him, but we've made several already. This is a property owner that, quite frankly, we've had property maintenance issues with in the past with other properties. So I don't know if he's simply avoiding us or what have you. And also keep in mind, we're not talking about taking an entire parcel. It's a very small sliver of land. It will not impact the value of the majority of his land at all. It's not like we're taking somebody's house. It's a very small, I can't remember what the size of the dimensions are, Brent, but.
Well, it's 113 square feet. It probably ranges from 6 inches to a foot, foot and a half at the max along the front edge of the property, which is what we need in order to create a 66-foot uniform right-of-way, which is what we need to maintain the ADA required clearances for that project.
Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah,
Freeman?
so we're doing both sidewalks on both sides, right?
Alderman Freeman, do you have a TV or a radio on in the background with the show on? Because we're hearing a lot of echo and feedback.
No, I don't, but I took you off speaker, so that's probably better.
So yes, it includes improvements from right-of-way line to right-of-way line, which would be sidewalks on both sides.
Okay, and is this the only property that we're going to have to do this with that hasn't given us any response?
Yes, I think there's 8 parcels and 6 property owners, if I'm remembering correctly, that we need to acquire, and we've had positive feedback, and discussions are ongoing with the other property owners based on our initial conversations. And in fact, we've got one agreement back that we have to bring to council for other parcels, but this is the only one that we have not got any formal response back. I have contacted and talked to a relative of the owner, but have not been able to speak to the owner proper.
Okay.
Additional questions or comments?
Alderman Brereton?
Alderman Brereton, please proceed.
I agree with Alderman Porter, and we say that we've made several attempts to contact the owner. I'm just wondering what methods of contact we've tried.
We've, like I said, we've sent letters to the address according to the land records. We've sent, and I think they were certified if I remember correctly, and those have not been returned or responded. I did track down a relative, and I did talk to that person on the phone, but again, I have not been able to contact the owner proper.
Additional questions?
Okay. Yes, just then reading the end of this. Yeah, number 4 on the second page. Authorizing the mayor, his staff, and the city attorney to negotiate. I'm just curious, how are we going to negotiate if we can't get a hold of them?
Again, the purpose of this ordinance is to make one final attempt to try to get a hold of him and establish the fact that the council specifically authorized the purchase of the sale. Assuming he does not respond to our offers again after we've done this ordinance, then we come back to the council with another ordinance asking to utilize eminent domain.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brereton,
I will move it to council.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Which brings us to item B, Resolution 2020-2020, resolution approving the bylaws of the Rock River Watershed Group. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Snow will make that motion.
Motion by Snow, second by Porter. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none. Yes, Alderman Fleury.
Just had one of the paragraphs talking about annual dues. What are the annual dues for this?
The annual dues have not been established yet. Once the board's set, once all the participating agencies are on board, then the board will meet and those dues will be set. This is coming to us basically as a requirement through our MPDS permit for our wastewater treatment plant for our outfall into the Kishwaukee River. We had to do a phosphorus optimization plan, as you recall, and part of that plan included creating a NARP, which is a nutrient assessment and reduction plan, and that's where you study the discharge, what comes from the plant into the river, and we are tributary to the Rock River watershed. That's why we are part of the Rock River Watershed Group, which is what was being established in order to complete the NARP, which is required for our MPDS permit.
Answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor?
Since Brent, this is Alderman Snow, since Brent brought it up, the discharge water we do put into the river, and I've been to the Dog and Pony at the sewer plant twice, so the overall scheme of things, the water we discharge, isn't it drinkable in all respects, technically?
Probably if we analyzed it for drinking water standards, we'd be pretty close to doing that, yes. Minus the chlorine residual.
So generally speaking, it's good water that we're putting into the river. We're not having all this residual stuff, most likely.
Well, there is a phosphorus content, and the goal of the program is to reduce phosphorus content nationwide, basically, and its impact, especially in the Mississippi Delta region. So that is why the NARP is there, the nutrient reduction process, that part of the program. So there has to be some studies done on the existing conditions within the river, within the watershed, and because we are discharging into the Kishwaukee, we're immediately upstream from where that empties into the Rock River, so that's why we're part of the Rock River Watershed Group, and we're actually part of the Kishwaukee River Watershed Group through CREP. We get to be members of both.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Nay.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Radcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Okay. Thank you. Under item C, we have wastewater treatment plant fiscal sustainability plan. May I have a motion to approve the plan?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Arivalo. May I have a second, please? By Alderman Porter. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Radcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Brings us to item D, bid tabulation, 2018 wastewater treatment plant improvements for the IEPA loan number 3623. May I have a motion to approve, please?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Stevens,
I'll second.
second by Alderman Fleury. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Radcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Brings us to item E, bid tabulation for the demolition of 407 West Madison Street. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Snow, may I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Alderman Stevens, third by Alderman Porter. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor?
Snow has a question.
Please proceed.
So is this actually removing the foundation, or is this going to leave stem walls on the premises?
Everything will be gone.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. That brings us to number 5, other, and a new resolution, 2021-2020, a resolution in support of a pedestrian and bike path connection between the city of Belvedere and the village of Poplar Grove. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Porter, second.
I'll second that. Oh,
By
McGee's.
Alderman Arivalo, third by Alderman McGee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor?
Snow has a question. So what's the tentative path from Belvedere? Where does it start? I'm assuming it's going to be in and around the Salvation Army parking lot because that's near the Dairy Ripple to the Park District, but how does it wind, or what's the tentative proposed plan that we're saying, yeah, we're on board with, and what does this leave us on the hook for?
The plan is, this is for in support, this is a letter of support basically that, or the resolution of support that's going to go along with the grant request of the county for the installation of the extension of the path basically along the Poplar Grove Road right-of-way. There's some current improvements going on that we are participating in at the Poplar Grove Road and Lawrenceville intersection. And there's also been some recent property transactions that the Conservation District has received in that area. So it includes that area as well. So I think the Conservation District has an interest in the project as well. But the lead agency for this will be the county, and this resolution is merely a support letter from the city for the county's grant request. I think it's going to be in the neighborhood of between $1 million and $1.5 million. But right now, the tentative plan is to have the alignment within the Poplar Grove Road right-of-way. And there's a couple different options there. That's why it was mentioned earlier about the public meetings. That we're going to have 2 public meetings set up, targeting primarily the adjacent property owners to Poplar Grove Road between Belvedere and Poplar Grove as to where it's going to go and what it's going to look like. Of course, it's open to anybody to come, but they need that input from the adjoining property owners as well. So right now, this does not put the city on the hook for anything. We'll have to wait and see what the county ultimately will be looking for, if there's any kind of a dollars match, the support that they may have. But as of now, they're looking just for the resolution.
Additional questions or
And
comments?
Alderman Snow has a question. So would this tentative plan be a separate path that would almost be like a sidewalk, so there'd be easement between the road and the path, or would it just be basically glorified expansion of the asphalt that's already there?
Both of those options are what's being looked at. There's some bridge structures that have to be crossed and how that's going to be dealt with. When they did the Poplar Grove Road Bridge right next to the General Mills, there was sidewalk provisions on one side of that bridge. So there's provisions about getting that extended. So theoretically, somebody could take a path all the way from Belvedere, go past General Mills, and go up Poplar Grove Road and get to the Long Prairie Trail. That's the ultimate goal.
Alderman Frank and then Alderman McGee.
Did we have plans at one time to do a bike path on Newburgh Road?
Brent?
There's been paths shown, and Gina can correct me if I'm wrong. I think they were shown along Kishwaukee River through the Conservation District property, but there's been discussions on Newburgh Road as far as sidewalk and/or path, or a combination thereof. But I think the pathway was actually shown in the Conservation District, if I remember correctly.
Not on the roadway itself. McGee?
Yeah, do we know if that's the east side or the west side of Papa Grove Road?
Still yet to be determined. That's another one of the factors of the public meeting. I think CES has been hired by the county to provide some concept drawings and some options there for the public to review.
Part of the grants for technical assistance, I think, too, the planning part of this, too.
I think part of the grant will be to pay for the engineering portion as well, correct?
Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Porter.
Aye.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Arivalo.
Aye.
Brereton.
Aye.
Flurry.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
McGee.
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Which brings us to item B, appointment of Carl G. as chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yes.
First, did a couple of weeks ago, didn't we appoint Paul Inglesmus to this?
No, we did not. They
Okay.
proposed, they voted to promote Paul. We cannot promote Paul, he's my son-in-law.
That's why they didn't.
That's why we did not, and I had talked to Carl, and Carl was happy to accept.
Well, I thought I was going crazy.
Maybe you're only half crazy. So a couple weeks ago, you voted to reappoint Paul and Andy Reyes to serve another term on the plan commission. So yeah,
Right.
you're only half crazy. Okay.
Any additional questions?
And
or
so
comments?
this is Alderman Snow, do we always, and I should know this, but do we always approve the chairman choice? Because usually it's the members of the board that appoint the chairman, do they not?
Attorney Drella.
It's a funny thing you asked that. So, for whatever reason, before my time with the city, 17, 18 years ago when I started, they adopted bylaws for Planning and Zoning Commission whereby the members would choose their chairman. That actually contradicts state law. State law provides that the mayor makes the appointment of the chairman with the advice and consent of the city council. What has happened since I've made that knowledgeable to the mayors is that they simply appoint whoever the Planning and Zoning Commission elects. So in effect, they give effect to the decision of Planning and Zoning Commission, but the appointment is actually the mayor's appointment. In this case, the Planning and Zoning Commission had elected Carl Ganevut to the vice chair position. Given the fact that the chair wouldn't take the position, we're presenting him in his place.
Additional questions or comments?
Thank you.
I have a motion by Alderman Frank. May I have a second? By Alderman Porter. Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Arivalo.
Aye.
Brereton.
Aye.
Flurry.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
McGee.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Under C, we wanted to have a discussion of in-person meeting attendance by aldermen and staff, and I'll refer to the city attorney with some information that he shared with me concerning this a couple of weeks ago.
So obviously, the governor's executive orders, at least as of today, are still in place and effect, and the mayor has, pursuant to state statute, issued his memorandum that we will proceed to use remote attendance for those aldermen that desire to, for the pendency of this emergency as declared by the governor. So that satisfies the amended Open Meetings Act. What I did learn in talking to other municipal attorneys in the region, I'm not really sure what Rockford is doing, but I think they're in person. All but one of the municipalities whose attorneys I talked to are back to full in-person attendance, not using remote attendance at all anymore. I can't remember which one it was that was not. It was either Lowe's Park or McChesney Park or something like that. But Freeport and the majority of the municipalities in our region are back to attending in person. So I thought I'd throw it out there to see if the council wanted to move that route or if we should continue as we've been doing.
Well, we do know that there are certain of our aldermen that have special circumstances. Alderman Snow caring for Terry, and all of a sudden, also Alderman Freeman cares for her mother. So, you know, we just wanted to have that conversation, but everybody that's healthy, if they can come, it would be nice to have you here concerning all of the issues that we have with the phones and understanding what people have said to one another. So just wanted to have a conversation. Alderman Porter?
Yeah, I'd like to see it continue, just based on the fact that we're actually worse now with the infection rate and such than it was in the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm not sure why the governor is opening things up as fast as he is. But we just have to keep in mind that it is still pretty bad. So I think we should continue with it the way we are.
Okay, any other comments? We're not going to.
Alderman Snow has something. You know, while I'd love to be there in full attendance because I would get more out of it, being that at any given point tonight we have, I believe, 5 on the phone. Typically there's 6 on the phone, and I would say at this point, due to the COVID thing, that as long as we can continue it, we should, because obviously if you were able and willing to, you would already be there.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we're good on that. The final thing, we actually moved up to the impact fee discussion, and I don't think we want to open up that can again tonight. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the festivities. Motion by Alderman Frank, second by Alderman McGee. Questions, comments, or further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying yay!
Aye.
We are now adjourned.